Earlier today, I went over to my granny. She had fixed a nice big meal. And right before I got ready to leave, she told me to take a plate to her neighbor, Miss Celestine. And me being the good grandson that I am, I went over there, took Miss Celestine that plate. Miss Celestine, now keep in mind, she's an elderly lady, closer to 80 than she is 70. She opened the door. She had on a blue robe with a bonnet on her head, had a walker with them 2 tennis balls at the bottom, and had an oxygen tank with her. She let me in. I walked in that motherfucker. As soon as I walked in the living room, I seen that Miss Celestine had a motherfucking stripper pole in the middle of her living room. So I looked around. I say, Miss Celestine, I say, you got your daughters, somebody here live with you? She said, no, baby, it's just me. I say, well, Miss Celestine, you got a stripper pole in the middle of your living room. And what she said, well, baby, she said, when the government went on strike, they cut my check, so I had to figure something out. She said, here, let me show you. I said, no, right before I can slow her down to keep her from showing me anything. This woman went in her bedroom. I say about a minute and a half after that, I hear, tell me what you want, bumping on the speakers in the living room. Miss Celestine had opened the bedroom door and had on a red wig with a silk gown on that came to the middle of her thighs with some garter belts and white stockings and some open-toe gold house shoes on. And she had 2 big white Josephine feather fans with a walker, and walked up out that motherfucker. And she walked up out the motherfucker. She was shaking and she started rolling and she did a couple of rolls. And then Miss Celestine, she walked around the motherfucking and she started waving the feather fan, and she walked around that motherfucking stripper pole probably about 3 times. And right before she got ready to finish, she threw them goddamn feather fans at me and sat down in that motherfucking recliner out of breath. She said, ooh, shit. She said, baby, go on into the kitchen and look in the Frigidaire and get me 1 Ensure and 1 of them Gatorades out of there. So I go in there and I get an Ensure and Gatorade, and I set it on the next to a little stand next to a recliner, and she hitting that motherfucking oxygen. She said, now, baby, she said, you see, I can get at it. She said, now, the first time, I'm just showing you what I did. The first time is free. She said, and the next time you come back, it's going to be $40.